Adele, what do you think about women's position today?
Well, I do think that women should be at the top.
So let's hear it from Kee Chun Mun, who will be talking about the position of women.
Thanks. On 1st September 2008, 5 girls in Pakistan were buried alive for wanting to choose their own husbands. On 12th November of the same year, 15 girls in Afghanistan were attacked by acid for going to school. What do you think of when you hear these terrible incidents? I guess that most of you would feel a little bit flabbergasted of such cruel acts. But then, you would think that these incidents are acceptable in a third world country. A very good morning to the organizers, judges, ladies and gentlemen. I am here today to bring to you this highly concerned global issue, the position of women. Napoleon once said, "Give me good mothers, and I will give you a good nation." This shows how important women are in bringing up our next generation and strengthening a country. However, 67% of the world's 875 million illiterate adults are women. What is the main reason behind this phenomenon? When it comes to this issue, the first idea that might arise in your mind is sexism. Undeniably, this age-old notion has dominated many aspects of our modern life. Even as we are progressing towards the age of technology, many are still deeply entrenched in these preconceived beliefs about how a person should behave or act according to his or her gender. It is only recently, through widespread education and increasing affluence, that people are raising more and more awareness about this issue. Ladies and gentlemen, today, we see many successful women around the world dominating various fields such as science, politics, education, sports, to name a few. A good example is the current president of India, Pratibha Patil, who is a female leader. And for our own country, we have Tan Sri Dr. Zeti and Dato Nicole David, who have made the nation proud in economy and sports respectively. Yes, compared with the position of women 20 years ago, it has risen greatly. However, if we pay a visit to history, things were not as good as what we see today. In retrospect, the position of women in early modern Europe was indeed inferior. Women's creativity was limited, and womanhood was synonymous with incompleteness, or worse still, subhumanity. Then, in ancient India around 500 BC, the women faced confinement and restrictions. Child marriages and polygamy were widely practiced, and various customs had conquered the old Indian community. For instance, an old but defunct practice, sati, tormented the women as the widow was immolated alive on her husband's funeral pyre. Puja, a practice which forced Indian Muslim women to cover their bodies fully, imposed restrictions on the mobility of women, curtailed their rights to interact freely, and it is a symbol of the subordination of women. And that's enough, ladies and gentlemen. That's enough. We cannot allow such cruel acts to happen on these women anymore. Fortunately and thankfully, we have activists from the international community who have worked hard since the last century till now to strike for women's rights, equality, and freedom. This is why we celebrate the International Women's Day on March 8 every year. This meaningful day encourages all women around the world to stand up and fight for their rights. Even our Prime Minister, Dato Sri Najib, announced last week that the private sector is given 5 years to ensure that women make up at least 30% of those in decision-making positions. The status of women is now ascending. Women are able to compete with men or even triumph over them. For instance, the champion for today's competition might be a female contestant, beating all the boys here, including me. However, this does not mean that great efforts should be slackened. Many women, especially in third world countries, still require the help from the international community to free them from the abyss of suffering. The international community must converge diversity and work together to eliminate all forms of restricting barriers. As the theme of last year's International Women's Day went, equal rights, equal opportunities, progress for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Chun Mun. The time taken was 5 minutes and 26 seconds.